Hello and welcome to today's video. In this video, I'm talking about anxiety symptoms, those sensations that we all experience when anxiety does pop its ugly head, and how it can lead to extreme health anxiety and agoraphobia. And so it can be a cycle, right? So anxiety produces the sensation. The person or my older self would react negatively to this sensation with high emotion, and then it would cause more anxiety. So it would be this loop that can last for months and even years, right? And so when somebody reacts to that anxiety system with that strong negative emotion, they're reacting to it like it's this unknown anomaly, but essentially it is, because anything outside of our known territory produces some sort of anxiety. We become more heightened and alert when we go hiking in the woods, when we're away from our home, when we start a new job, when we go on a trip somewhere, we're more heightened and alert because this is something that's brand new. And that's where you develop, is in the place of the unknown, the place where that is away from your safe zone. You don't develop when you're in your safe zone, when you're coping. You develop when you're in situations that really test you and challenge you mentally and physically, right? So anxiety, when we experience anxiety, there is an excess of adrenaline and cortisol in our system, right? And so the fight, flight, or freeze response is active. And if we encounter a mugger on the street, if we encounter a predatory animal in the woods, it's understandable that our anxiety systems are active, that we are, after we encounter that, we have like no breath left in us, even though we weren't running or anything. We were just like our hearts beating out of our chest. It's understandable. But when we are at home, when we are on the subway, when we are at school, on the bus, and we feel the sensations, the person's like, oh my God, why am I feeling like this? I must have a disease. I must be sick. And they start to view themselves as unhealthy. And there's two ways to go from there. You can go the coping route, where you go to the reassurance seeking from your loved ones. You become dependent on alcohol, weed. You become dependent on TV to mask and put a band-aid over your emotions temporarily. Or you can go this other route, where it's the developing route, where you learn to face it, and you learn techniques so that when you encounter the unknown, you know what to do and you know how to calm your system down. You want to be the person with the tools, with the resources. You don't want to be that dependent person relying on other people or things for you to feel better. You want to be the walking embodiment of the person that can handle all challenges, right? That's really the key. That's the goal, right? And the question is, why isn't everybody scared out of their minds about these sensations? Because, we're human beings. We know that we're going to die. Why isn't everybody scared out of their minds? It's because some people have learned to face their fears and what they're afraid of, face that resistance and overcome it, and so that they now are braver than they've ever been before. So they develop this self-respect. And we see this all the time nowadays on YouTube and social media. People who've overcome and overcame addictions, overcame anxiety and depression and hard times, is because they found that facing what they're afraid of and confronting the parts of them that they don't want to confront, the shadow parts of themselves, they learned how to handle that situation, and then because of that they learn how to become braver. And once you see yourself overcome a situation that you thought you couldn't in the past, you start to view all other situations and symptoms as less fearful, because now you think to yourself, if I can handle that thing, I can handle all of these other things. And that's what happened with me when I overcame my anxiety disorder. I started to view the world and myself differently, from a different perspective. And so let's talk about these anxiety symptoms, which are hyperventilation, the shallow breathing, dizziness, the foggy mind, heart palpitations, the chest pains, the body zaps. I used to get body zaps down in my lower stomach region. They would just pop up and I would be overly concerned for the moment, and then they would go away and I'd be like, oh my God, what was that thing? Also, nausea, irritable bowel syndrome, constant urination, headaches, difficulty swallowing, tightness all over the body, sweating. Let's get into these symptoms more in detail. Let's start with tightness and body zaps. Why do we get those? It's because when our fight, flight, or freeze response is active, what happens is the blood rushes away from the parts of ourselves that we don't really need for that moment, and it rushes towards our limbs, the parts that we need to use to flee or to fight in order to overcome that situation. This is how we evolved as human beings. And so the reason why we get that tightness is because our bodies are now tense. There's more blood flow. And then we get hyperventilation, where we find it hard to get a full breath of air. And the reason is because oxygen is flowing to the muscles so that we can respond to that perceived danger. Rapid heart rate, one that I really responded to. I responded to, when I used to suffer from anxiety, it was hyperventilation. That's what really triggered my anxiety when I was around 8, 9 years old. When I first had a panic attack, it was the hyperventilation that made me overly aware of what was really going on. And ever since that moment, that strong negative emotion at that age, around 8, when it popped up again a decade later, I responded to that hyperventilation. I relived basically the same event when I was around 8 years old. And then going to rapid heartbeat, which was another one I didn't like at all. The reason why we get that is because the heart is pumping more blood to the parts of our body that we need, right? And it also causes chest pains and those body zaps that we don't, it's concerning, to say the least. Nausea, upset stomach, right? In a moment of, when we encounter that predatory animal out in the woods, we're not concerned about eating a meal, right? That's why we get that nausea. That's why we get that upset stomach. The blood is flowing away from the parts of the body that we don't really need in that moment, so you might not feel hungry for a lot of the time, because when your anxiety systems are active. I remember not eating that much and losing a lot of weight when I used to suffer, right? I was very deprived of nutrients because of that reason. I wasn't eating enough. And that's because my body was like, who cares about food? There's a perceived danger. And that's why it's overwhelming to suffer from anxiety in your own home, is because it's so novel, right? It's why am I feeling like this? There's no predatory cat lurking in the corner. I'm just at home, so it can be quite daunting for a lot of people. Sweating was a big part of my anxiety disorder, and for many others, because the body's trying to cool itself off. That's why we sweat. That's why we perspire. And I remember having deodorant in my backpack and putting it on like 3 times a day because I was always sweating all the time. Urination and diarrhea, very common, because what happens is the muscles around our anuses relax, and our bladder relaxes, and our bodies are just getting rid of things, getting rid of weight, I guess you can say, from our body so that we can be lighter on our toes from that predatory animal. Dizziness and going crazy. This was another massive one for me, and one of the biggest ones I responded to, because I would be out in public, I would be at work, and I would feel dizzy. I couldn't get a grip over my thoughts, and that like the feeling of not getting control over myself really concerned me. I needed to have some sort of control, and many people do, because when you're so far into chaos and you don't have enough order, I mean, your anxiety response is going to be active all the time. And that's because our amygdala, the part of our brain that initiates the fight, flight, or freeze, takes over all other brain processes. And it takes over because it needs to respond to the danger instantaneously. If you had to spend a minute thinking rationally about the situation, you'd be dead. So we evolved to respond to anomaly quickly, right? Fast, under our conscious awareness. That's why we can't get a grip, and that's why you can't think your way out of a panic attack. And so as you can see from this list, it's real easy to get health anxiety and to really go down that route to agoraphobia. And agoraphobia is when everything outside of your safe zone becomes so fearful. You don't want to go out in public because you're afraid of being away from paramedics, the people you depend on for help. You're afraid of being away from them, and also you're afraid of embarrassing yourself, as you die in public, right? And so people tend to shrink their walls smaller and smaller, and then they end up at home unable to face the unknown. But like I said before, the question is, why isn't everybody scared out of their minds? It's because people learned how to confront the challenges and overcome them. People learn how to respond appropriately, and they learn techniques to handle stressful situations. I see it all the time with my clients. They overcome one scenario in their life, and then all of a sudden, many other scenarios become manageable because they now look at themselves from a different perspective. They see somebody in the mirror that can handle those challenges. You have to prove to yourself that you can overcome these challenges. So you can move to the coping domain, or you can move to the developing mind domain. And the developing mind domain is where you develop strategies so that you know what to do when you feel this way. And you become more familiar with your sensations. You move outside of the unknown and into a place of order, right? Because too much order is not good. Too much chaos, too much anxiety, right, is not good. You want to find that mediation between the two. Because there's always going to be those dragons emerging in your life. The snakes are going to pop up. And it's important to be the person who embodies the hero. The person that knows what to do when a situation like that comes about. When you feel panicky. I remember a time when I felt panicky, and I said to myself, this is a great opportunity to challenge myself. It's a great opportunity. I want panic to happen to me. I want panic to occur tomorrow because I want to feel, I want to practice this new identity that I've created. The person that faces this fear and not runs away and copes. And once I started to develop that mindset and that way of thinking, panic lessened and lessened and lessened, and things just got a lot better. So I hope this video has helped you recognize the symptoms of anxiety, and I hope it's moved you further into that known territory, that order domain, and away from that chaos, even a little bit. And remember, do not let anxiety define who you are. Please leave a like, leave a comment. I'll get back to you, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now. Remember to hit that subscribe button and that bell so that whenever a new video of mine appears, you will be the first to know. Namaste.